Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dynamics of the Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to Professor James Moriarty, Napoleon of Crime, and arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. I'm Madeline Quinones, and I am joined by my lovely co-host,
Dixie Parkinson.
and today we have a returning guest host,
Hi,
Heather
I'm
Hinson.
Heather.
And we are here today to talk about this year's 221B Con. Really quick, there is some Moriarty news. So I think probably most people know by now that there's, of course, going to be the Watson show on CBS that is going to feature Moriarty. They still haven't actually announced the casting for Moriarty yet, as far as I can tell. So it's going to be interesting to see how in what direction they go with that character.
Have they given a release date yet?
It's supposed to be this fall. That's the interesting thing.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, it's only a few months away. So who's the Moriarty? It might be a secret. It might be a surprise.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. There's also going to be Sherlock and Daughter on the CW and CW. I don't know why I said CW.
I was just going to let you go.
And that is going to have Moriarty. I don't remember the name of the actor, which I should have pulled up before we started, but I don't know. I hope it's good, but I don't know that it's going to be, which is not because there's a focus on, or rather, maybe it is because of injecting an extra female character into the Sherlock Holmes stories. It can go so right or it can go so wrong, and it depends on who's doing it. So we'll see. I think that's slated for, I don't think that's for this coming TV season. I think that's next year.
His name is Doug Ray Scott.
That's it. So yeah, and for anybody interested in Ken Ludwig's Moriarty play, there are at least a couple of productions that I have seen slated for this year's theater season. So there's a theater in Colorado and a theater in Missouri who are going to be putting on the play. There might also be one in Florida. I don't remember for sure. We will have the links to those in the show notes, but that makes me really happy that that's starting to get out there. And I just really hope that these theaters, that put this play on in the future, are not going to be afraid to lean into the drama of it, because my honest opinion about the Meadowbrook production is that they let the comedy undercut the drama. And I think that just hurt the heart of the story. It's a delicate balance. You cannot have it be too funny, because then otherwise it ruins all the serious stuff. So I just hope that there are some theaters that do it well. Don't be afraid to be earnest in your storytelling, because I think that's a problem with a lot of productions today, on stage, on screen.
And I think this is a very earnest story at its heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It has humor because it's Ken, and that's what he does. And the humor does help, because then otherwise it's I mean, it's already intense, but it's even more intense without the humor. But yeah. So we'll see how that goes. I will not be going to any of these productions, but let me tell you, if somebody in Chicago ever picks it up, I'm there. I am not missing that. Okay, so this is a little news flash coming to you from a few weeks after we originally recorded this episode, because this actually the same day that we recorded, some more Moriarty news came out, and I didn't find out until the next day, and it's just taken us this long to record again. As happens because we have lives. But oh my goodness.
The Arthur Conan Doyle estate is at it again. There is going to be a new novel that the estate has commissioned from novelist Gareth Rubin. The book is called Holmes and Moriarty, and it sounds like Moran is going to be a major player. I have no problems with that.
None here either.
And it sounds like Holmes and Moriarty are going to be forced to work together, and I also have no problems with that.
It's always one of my favorite tropes.
So it's frustrating because this sounds like, this sounds like a book that I'm really gonna enjoy. I mean, I'm hoping I'm gonna enjoy it, but it's just like, why does the estate still? I mean, I know why. I know why. I'm tired of this, and especially because whenever whenever you see reports of whenever you see news articles talking about The House of Silk or Moriarty, the two novels that Anthony Horowitz wrote for the estate a few years ago. Actually, goodness, House of Silk was 12 years ago already, and I think Moriarty was 10 years ago now. So it's been a long time. But oh man, I mean, the whole thing about their authorization of these books. I mean, we could do a whole podcast episode about this, and it would basically be regurgitating talking points from, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere and the Baker Street Babes. And because we are bringing any of this up at all, we will have links in the show notes so that you can go listen to more things and be more informed. But it really bothers me that news outlets are not doing the work, are not doing the research into, they're just taking the estate's claims at face value. And that is poor journalism. Even if it's entertainment journalism should still
Yeah.
be factual. And the fact is that the estate has authorized many, many novels, including Lindsay Faith's Dust and Shadow. She's been open about that. That she paid a fee to the estate to get the characters licensed, and it's authorized. It is legit authorized by the estate. So, when the House of Silk first came out, they were like, "Oh, this is gonna like join the canon," and it's like, why would you do? Look, this isn't Dune, okay? This isn't Dune where like there's one book and then it was continued later. You know, the original 60 stories, it's a very robust canon.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be added to. And I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who loves fan fiction, who writes a lot of it or did, not so much anymore nowadays, but oh my gosh, I was prolific in my early 20s. um, and I just, oh man, I'm just so tired of this. And it's just because it's just money grubbing. That's what this really boils down to. I mean, Sherlock Holmes entered the last two stories that were in copyright in the United States, entered the public domain about a year and a half ago. And so now the estate really cannot go after authors and creators saying, you have to pay us to use Sherlock Holmes in your books or your adaptations. But they do have some trademarks, even though I'm not even clear about how those trademarks work. And like last fall, what we saw was they started getting sites like Redbubble to send takedown notices to artists with like t-shirts and stuff
Mm.
online, which is so dumb because I don't think
Yeah.
that they're selling Sherlock Holmes t-shirts. You know, like if they were, it'd be different. I genuinely think it would actually be different, but all they have to do is, tell a company, hey, these people are in violation of our trademark, and the company will say, hey, you got to take your thing down. So we have not heard the last of the Arthur Conan Doyle estate, unfortunately. But we should, I should stop ranting about this now.
No, I'm enjoying you getting on your soapbox here.
I really could spend an entire episode talking about this, and maybe sometime we should. Maybe sometime we actually should. But in the meantime, I don't exactly want to support the estate with my dollars, but I will be getting this book when it comes out. And it is already available for pre-order. The title, again, is Holmes and Moriarty. The author is Gareth Rubin, and let's see, when is it coming out? This fall. All right, September. So, check it out when it comes out. I will try to have a review for it online, and it could be fun. So, we'll see what happens. And now we should continue on with the rest of the episode.
So, yeah, that is all of our Moriarty news. Let's get into talking about Con. So, Heather, you were actually there before me.
I was.
And what did you do all day? Because you were there like really early on Thursday.
Oh, I did absolutely nothing. Like I got in, and then what time did I get in? Probably about 11:30, 12 o'clock.
So early.
So I couldn't get my room until 3. So I just took my bag and sat on the couch in the lobby area, and there were a couple of other con goers there that I knew. So I kind of sat down with them and kind of hung out with people. And basically at that point on Thursday afternoon, you're just watching all the other con goers come in, and it's like, oh wait, I know that person. Oh wait, I know that person. Oh wait, I don't know that person. But so
Yeah.
the first of my friends I think meandered in about 1 o'clock. So yeah, and then I went in and got my room about 3 o'clock, I think. Packed my stuff up, got dressed, and came back down to hang out with everybody else.
And I was driving literally all day. This was genuinely like one of the worst drives that I've ever had, and that's really saying something because driving to and from con the first year was bad. And I swear this is worse.
Oh.
It was raining in Michigan, and it was raining in Georgia, and it was raining everywhere in between.
Oh.
And sometimes it was like, I'd really like to pull off on the shoulder, but there isn't a safe shoulder to pull off onto. Fortunately, that didn't happen a whole lot, but there were other obstacles, stop and go traffic. And so by the time I got to Atlanta, it was dark. I got turned around a couple of times. So by the time I rolled into the parking lot, I had been on the road for 14 hours. And I was absolutely beat. And that just set the tone for the rest of the time, where I just had zero energy, which was so frustrating. That was hard. And I hated that so much because I lost my Thursday evening. I
Oh.
lost that time to, hang out with everybody because I was really looking forward to that.
Oh.
But the next day, Friday morning, there was a dual Waffle House expedition.
There was a dual Waffle House expedition because Madeline's like, I'm not getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning. You guys can all just no.
Yeah.
So some of us got up at 8 and left for Waffle House. And then when we came back, Madeline and Kristen were up and moving. So then about 10:30, we went back to the Waffle House, ate, and then picked up a couple of other things on the way, and then finally headed back to the hotel.
Uh-huh. And I mean, the funny thing, so Brad and Heather took Kristen and me back to the Waffle House. And I guess we went back to the same booth that you guys had been at
We
previously.
were in the same booth. We had the same waitress who was
And
very
the
confused
look
when she
on her
walked up.
face, the double take that she took. Never gonna forget that. That was so funny.
She had this entire look like, wait a minute.
Well,
Some of you look familiar.
it was so funny. And then it turned out that she had a sister who lived in Michigan. So when I said I was from Michigan, she held up her hand and she was like, "Where?" I'm like, "Oh, yes." So I did the hand thing. That was fun. Yeah, if you're from Michigan, it's obligatory. It's the only state that's shaped like a hand. So that was fun. And then yeah, we made some stops on the way back. And oh yeah, after that we podcasted. We did a live recording of our Bullpups and Company segment on the Watsonian Weekly.
Yep.
And that was fun to do it in that environment. And I listened back to it the other day, and I actually love the ambient noise, just the
Yes.
sound of the hotel in the background and everybody. It's just really fun to listen to because it puts you right back in there. Registration opened up at 3. I think it actually opened up slightly early, because there were plenty of people who were, already there and ready to go. But yeah, I had an early dinner, which worked out, since Waffle House had been so late that was definitely brunch. And it was fun. But so the first panel that I went to was the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace panel, which, oh my gosh, it's been 25 years since the Phantom Menace. Which was actually the first movie that I saw twice in the theater.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I am only like a year or two younger than Jake Lloyd. So, watching the movie for the first time, I'm, the same age as Anakin Skywalker, and I can't tell you how special that was. And so that was a lot of fun. There was one person doing the panel, but it still wasn't actually a round table. So a talk, I guess. I guess it was a talk.
Mhm.
But it was recorded, so I'm hoping that I might be able to find it on YouTube. And if it does show up on YouTube, then I will definitely throw a link in the show notes. But it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't just focused on the Phantom Menace. It was also about like the impact that that movie had on Star Wars and on filmmaking in general. Because one point was made, which is very true. Well, and it was made in this way, and I love this, that Andy Serkis would not have a career without Jar Jar Binks. And it's true because the
yeah.
movie capture that was used to create Gollum and what is it, King Kong and even Smaug with Benedict Cumberbatch in The Hobbit, is the technology that was used to bring Jar Jar to life as the first fully realized CGI character.
Yep.
So so that was fun, but there was a lot of like how this movie like really opened up the world of Star Wars in a really big way. And I loved it. I had so much fun. at that panel. Heather, I lost track of the panels that you were on. What was the first panel you were on?
I think all my panels were on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. All right. So the first panel that I was on was The Myth of Robin Hood, which I did with Heather
Yay.
Holloway. And that was something that came up because last year when we were gathered in Mrs. Hudson's, Heather mentioned that she really loved Richard Green as Robin Hood, that he was her favorite version of the character. And I was like, and
Please let me talk to you about this thing.
yeah. So then we determined to do a panel together on Robin Hood this year. Now the crazy thing, and I don't even remember how this happened, was that that panel ended up being 40% about Robin Hood, 40% about Tarzan, and then 20% about James Bond and other things. And so yeah, my only complaint is that I did not get to talk about Richard Green as much as I wanted to. So that was a lot of fun. It's of course very enjoyable to do a panel with Heather Holloway. She's great. There were there were plenty of good panels in the first Friday night. Shakespeare and Sherlock Holmes, which I did not get to. Were there any panels that you at least went to on Friday?
On Friday, yes. So I was going to go to the Our Flag Means Death panel, but we ended up having a craft event in Mrs. Hudson's room, so I missed that one. But I did go to the Shakespeare and Sherlock Holmes panel, which was fascinating.
So who was on that?
It was one gentleman. I do not know who exactly it was. I apologize for that. But he had an entire PowerPoint, and he was literally talking about how many times Shakespearean quotes were put into the canon, which was a lot. Definitely things from Hamlet and Macbeth. And what was the other one? Maybe Othello. Don't quote me on that. But so yeah, he did the entire panel in 30 minutes because he was really, really excited about it and just talked a lot. And then the rest of the time we pretty much kind of sat there and asked questions and did different things like that. So, but it was still really, really good. Unfortunately, I missed the researching the world of Sherlock Holmes, and I also went to the insecurity, imposter syndrome, and other creative pitfalls. That's what I did. That one was good too.
I'll bet.
So it was basically talking about how people have imposter syndrome around other people and how we can fix that. It was a roundtable. It was the first one I went to, and
yeah, probably should have gone to that one, honestly.
doing the roundtable was a great way to, I thought that worked better. I think in some of the later panels on Saturday, some people didn't understand what roundtable meant, but for this particular one, it worked out really well.
That does seem like a good set of topics for a roundtable.
Yeah, exactly. And then I missed the 221 Beach Con After Dark too, unfortunately, but I think Brad went to that one.
No, I think that he didn't. That's what we were talking about the other night.
Somebody I know went to that one, said they enjoyed it, but I don't know who.
So let's see. I did go to researching the world of Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay.
It was let's see. That was Ashley, Jeff Ryder, and I don't remember his name, but the gentleman who was one of the vendors, and he had antique jewelry and cufflinks and stuff.
Oh, he was the one who did the Victorian etiquette on Friday, the Manners Maketh Man, and he's also the one who did the soda one on Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should have been taking more notes because I swear I don't remember a single thing out of that panel, which is
it was fascinating. I just don't remember anything about it.
Because I actually kind of have difficulty doing research. I was like, why don't I remember anything? Why didn't I write more down? I'd originally wanted to go to karaoke, but again, I had been driving 14 hours the day before and only got about 6 or 7 hours of sleep. So by the karaoke started at 10 p.m., I was just not up to it. So I don't remember. That might have been when I went to Mrs. Hudson's for. I don't remember at what point I was doing scrapbooking.
Scrapbooking was between, well, actually, that went on all evening because it started about
So
8
then that
o'clock.
might have
And
been when I went over to do scrapbooking.
yeah,
Because I wasn't ready to go to bed yet. I just wasn't up to karaoke.
yeah, because I came back at about 10:30 and we were continuing scrapbooking. And that's when Hannah brought out all the alcohol and everybody
Yes.
just got drunk and
Yes.
scrapbook, as
Yes.
women tend to do.
Hey, I mean those flavored vodkas or something, or flavored whiskeys, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
No, that was quite fun. So the next morning, I started off by hitting up the dealer's room for stuff, and I ended up getting like a lot of jewelry. And I did get a beautiful graphic novel that is you've probably seen this artwork online, which is like Sherlock Holmes in the style of Edward Gorey.
Oh,
And this
aw.
this is a graphic novel of the William Gillette play.
Oh, cool.
So it's very beautiful, and that artist, Brett Hairholtz. Sorry, Brett, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He's terrific, and he had a lot of stuff, and I I really wanted to get more, and I hope that he comes back next year because I want to get more. But I was just like, trying to be careful, and then I ended up buying a bunch of books off of the book vendor who was there,
Yep.
and like a ton of really good stuff. So, yeah, okay, Dining with Sherlock Holmes, which is the book that Julia Rosenblatt did about the Sherlock Holmes dinners that she used to put on
Uh-huh.
in conjunction with the Culinary Institute of America, which you can actually listen to and I Hear Sherlock Everywhere episode that interviews her and her husband, Judge Al Rosenblatt, talking about their Sherlockian family and those dinners, and that's a fun listen. I'll put that in the show
Cool.
notes. Yeah, I also got Matthias Bostrom's From Holmes to Sherlock, which I shamefully have actually never had before, and I've finally gotten it. But that's one of those like modern cornerstones of Sherlockian scholarship. So it's really exciting to finally have my own copy. And I got a few other things. Oh, hold on, including this is relevant to the podcast.
Probably a Moriarty-based thing.
Yes,
Oh,
it
look,
is.
it's a Moriarty-based thing.
So this is called the Moriarty Papers, and uh it's like case files that Moran has compiled.
Ooh.
So like that. So this is going to be fun to get through. Like I've heard of this before, but I've never seen it in person, so I was not gonna walk away without picking this up.
It's a pretty book.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's even like the cover's even embossed. So it's very nice. I was very excited about that. So yeah, I spent a lot of money on that, on those books. But I was very happy to have them. And then that was about the time because one of the first panels, well, I guess it was a round table, was the 221 Beacon. Okay, is it Redux or Redo? I'm not sure.
I think it's redo.
Redo, yeah. Roundtable, which I didn't go to just because I'd gone to that last year.
Hmm.
And so Heather, you didn't go to that, did you?
I did not because Mycroft Through the Ages was going on in the Tennessee room and I was there.
Right, right. So then after that, I came across Brad in the hallway, and that's when he told me that there had been an announcement at the 221B Con redo, which was that next year's con would be the last. And so that news kind of filtered around to everybody else, I think, as the day went on. And I
It
think it
kind of
was,
put this entire pallor slash panic over the entire convention.
yeah. I mean, I think it was good to know that early on. Because
Yes,
for one thing, I think when you know that you're coming to the end of something, you are wanting to make the most out of, the time that you have left. But that was hard. I think that we can talk more about that at the end of this. But that was when it was announced, and so that's when people started finding out about it. So how was the Minecraft through the ages?
amazing. So Joanna Draper Carlson does this Mycroft Through the Ages, and she starts with the first. She starts with the Sydney Paget, obviously, illustrations of Mycroft Holmes, and goes all the way to I think Miss Sherlock's version. Um, she hasn't added in any. Well, no, yeah, Miss Sherlock, and of course Mycroft Holmes from BBC Sherlock. And then she has the elementary Reese. I can't remember who it was, but the Mycroft Holmes from Nat. And then she goes into books and comic books and different things there. So she just kind of goes through all of the Mycroft Holmes in movies and TV, and then books and comic books. So it's a fascinating panel, and she has her little slideshows and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fascinating, and I love listening to it. She started that panel. She did that panel for us in ShirlaliCon 2 or ShirlaliCon 3. She did that panel in ShirlaliCon 3, I think, for us. And over the years, she's kind of added stuff to it and tweaked it a little bit more. So yeah, I love listening to the panel because every year she adds something new and it's always good. And she finds something else so yeah, it was good. I liked it.
Well, now I'm sorry I missed it.
If she does it next year, you should absolutely go.
I will try to. Okay, so the Phantom Our Own Stories, was that something that you were a part of,
Yeah,
or
that was my first panel. So what it was supposed to be is I think it probably could have been connected up with Fandom Generations, which was on Sunday. But Fandom Our Own Stories, I think I wanted it to be more of everybody sitting down and talking about their experiences with fandom, just fandom in general, not just the Sherlock Holmes fandom, but like fandom in general and the things that we went through and the things that we didn't go through. Because I find it fascinating that the generations of fans that are there and things that the older fandoms went through that the younger fandoms never have to go through. But then there are a whole different set of problems that the newer fandoms are having to go through that I feel sometimes is like, okay, well, we can all work together and get through these things, but you know. So yeah, that it was a good panel. Like I thought it was going to be small, and I think we ended up having almost 10 people, almost a dozen people in the panel. So it turned out really good.
cool.
And then that went from 11 to 12. And then the My panel was from 11:30 to 12:30. So I went barreling into from that panel to the My panel, dressed as Greg Lestrade, as I do. And they had enough. I missed the first half, but they had apparently the three of them, it was Johanna and Lavender and Weepy, and they got together and did an entire like spreadsheet of how many Meistrad fics there were and where the drop off was and where the buildup was and stuff like that. So that was like, they put in way more research than I would have done. I would have been like, so what's your guys' favorite fics? But yeah, so the way they did it was really good. And then they added in some of the new fics and some of the new writers and stuff. So yeah, it was really good. Saturday was just a busy day because you just went
Yeah.
bounce, 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 bounce.
Well, right. It's the one day of con that is full of panels.
Yeah,
But and
because
unfortunately, some people don't have not realized entirely how con works, not naming any names.
oops.
But that it starts Friday afternoon or evening, however you want to call 5 p.m. in the
Mhm.
day. And it ends at, well, technically at 5 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah,
So it's a full weekend. It's the only Sherlockian event that's quite like that, because other conferences, not conventions, but conferences,
hmm
will usually just be like, they'll have something Friday evening or maybe start Friday afternoon, and then Saturday is panels, and then Sunday is maybe there's something, but a lot of people just go home on Sunday. Like, no,
right.
221BCon is a convention. It's a whole weekend.
Yeah.
Let's see. What was the first thing that I went to? First thing that I went to
Did you go
was
to Women in Canon? Because that was what I went to immediately after the Meistrad panel because I was on it with Ashley Polachek. Yay, no pressure.
I was at Women in the Canon.
Okay.
Actually,
So honestly, the Women in the Canon stayed on Canon,
yeah,
and Ashley and I, instead of picking out any specific women, kind of went through the types of women in the canon. So
category.
we were talking about like how many lower class, how many middle class, what their job descriptions were. So like the titled women and like the governesses versus like the typewriter or typists and the secretaries and stuff like that. And then their nationalities, because there's at least 3 Latin American women who were all described as feisty and
Fiery.
exotic,
Yeah.
because that's all Doyle knows about Latino women is that they're feisty and exotic. No, we're not racist at all. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Like that's
Um,
that's the one where like if Doyle was alive, you'd be holding me back.
exactly. Because Madeline is too feisty and exotic. But like, and
I'm
then
not
like the
feisty.
American, and then like the American women, and then the types of crimes that the women did are, we set it up into like 4 different things. So it was like the muses and the victims and the protectors, and there was one other one and I can't remember.
Entrepreneurs, and I thought
Entrepreneurs.
that was
Thank
the
you,
most
because
interesting
that
category.
was the one that brought up the most controversy.
Well, I really want to see that paper that you got this from. Well,
Um,
then something funny happened where I think that your source like had one of the female characters as coming from the Five Orange Pips, which is a story that has no female characters in it.
well, the Fire of Orange Pips has Lady Bracknell in it, though, right?
No, that's Abby Grange.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Yeah, Five Orange
Um,
Pips truly has no woman in it.
okay.
Um, and so that's when I was like, I'm questioning your source now.
Everything else was right. Maybe it might have been me writing it down wrong. So
Possible. And it was interesting though. It was definitely interesting. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. The two of you did a good job.
yeah, the most amusing part was when we ended up like defending our characters in canon, which was good because like, there was a panel later on about me defending Molly Hooper, but that's a completely different story. Um,
Oh, we
but
talked for a fair bit about
Effie from Yellowface.
Effie and also Mary Sutherland.
Yes.
So those are two characters who get kind of a bad rap, and especially Mary Sutherland. I would say that she is the most misaligned character and female character in the canon. And that was good. Yeah, I want to be on that panel next year if it's back. So all my support for that for sure.
Yay.
Let's see.
So then, yeah, there was the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, which always draws the draw. I do
Yeah.
not go to that,
I've
but
never made it to one of those, and I kind of feel bad about that.
yeah, they have a full room almost. Like they're pretty popular.
Yeah.
Um, but at 2:30, the Sherlock and Co panel that Maddie and I were both on. So it was me and Maddie and Sandra, and we had a late arrival by the name of Anthony Jones, or well,
Ethelny.
Ethelny Jones,
Yeah.
who is an artist who started drawing art for Sherlock and Co. and a couple of other things.
He's amazing.
So, yeah, and he was able to give, he's much younger than the other three of us that were on the panel. So he was able to give a younger, new person's, somebody who's just coming up into the fandom interpretation of what they're seeing as they're walking into the Sherlock Holmes fandom. So we talked about the podcast, and then we explained the podcast, and then we explained some other things and about the Discord and how the younger kids, how we're watching all this younger generation get into Sherlock Holmes as a franchise through Sherlock and Company, and the fact that the best way to listen to Sherlock and Co., which is usually, personally, I think, listen to the podcast first and then go back and read the story.
Yeah,
The
agreed.
original story, because that way, since they are adaptations, you're not reading the story and being like, wait a minute, this wasn't in the book. Wait a minute, this wasn't in the book. But also when you're listening to it, you get that surprise of stuff, and then you go back and see how it was actually written in the canon. So it's giving you a base to go on, because you know all the main characters and you know the basic plot of the story, but you're just seeing how Doyle actually wrote the story back in the early 1900s or the late 1900s, which is fascinating. And it's really, and it's getting kids to read Sherlock Holmes like right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be easier to get them to listen to the podcast first and get excited about it and then go back to read it.
Mm-hmm. It's
So
very exciting.
yeah.
And it's exciting, and also I am a little nervous because it seems like every fandom these days has some kind of major upset to it, you know what I mean? And so we are still in the honeymoon phase with this fandom. And I just don't want anybody to get hurt. And I mean, especially the kids, because they
I
are young
don't want to
and
be negative and I don't want to be pessimistic, but we're just waiting for that shoe to fall. And it's a horrible way to do this, but yeah.
Yeah. It's just that this is something that we see over and over again in fandoms, is that there ends up being a certain amount of entitlement and other things. So I just like this is so good. I don't want anything to ruin. I really do love this show. I really appreciated the opportunity to fangirl about Mariana. It's like she is the queen. Oh, so that was fun, and it just felt like a really good panel. And then later on, Rob Nunn, this was his first time coming to Cannes, which was so awesome. But Rob was like, that was the best panel I've seen so far.
Aww.
Like, yay. And Brad was like, that was the level of energy that panels at this con had back in the day, back
Yeah.
in the Sherlock heyday. And I was like, that made me really happy because obviously that is a period that I entirely missed. So it was
And
like
I
part of
kind of
that
figured,
energy.
yeah, I kind of figured that panel was going to be the big panel, and it was, and I
It
was
was
excited to see
full.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were full.
So
So
that's very
yeah.
exciting. There's a Fic versus Pastiche round table, which I'm really curious as to how that went.
Joanna did that one too, and I went to, apparently there was some fierce discussion in that panel, and I'm mad I missed it. So I think I'm going to see if I can get a copy of it from Johanna to see how well it went. But then Madeline did her podcast next. Well, Madeline and Dixie did their podcast next.
Yeah, so at 4 p.m. we did From Baker Street to the Holodeck, which was a legacy panel. And we had with us Ashley, Heather Holloway, just because both of them are really big Star Trek fans, and so I knew that we were gonna get a lot of good stuff out of them. And we also had Lee Shackelford, who
Yes.
actually wrote for Next Generation, and was basically the driving force behind getting Moriarty back in the show in the first place. So, so yeah, Dixie, how was your experience of that?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I loved hearing Ashley and Heather just fangirling about Star Trek for like half the panel. But
Yeah,
I mean, I've always been a Star Trek fan, so it was great fun.
yeah. So the awkward thing was that I'm like the Star Trek baby in terms of everybody on that panel. Um, I was the only one who like hadn't grown up with it. Well, and I say that, but I know that my dad would watch Star Trek. Like I remember what I now know to be Deep Space Nine being on the TV,
Right.
but I was not allowed to watch.
Oh,
So that's how that happened. But yeah, that was a lot of fun and letting Lee talk about the process
yeah.
of getting Ship in a Bottle on the air. That was great. And also, so Dixie, I'll throw this out because I know we haven't talked since con. So I, I just want to ask, like, did this one work better for you than last time?
Yes, it did. I mean, it was a miracle I made it there on time because uh, I had had a very busy day. First in the morning, I had family over. Then it was a friend's birthday, so we went bowling, and then there was some drama with another friend who was going through some things.
Oh
So
no.
I was supposed to be back like 2 hours before this started, but we ended up spending like another hour and a half. So I probably arrived back home like a couple of minutes before it was meant to start. So I was just ran in to get there.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, that's a full day too
Yeah.
because we started at 10 p.m. your time.
Yes.
Oh, and then afterwards you got to meet Max.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
That was really sweet. Um, I so appreciate how much of a fanboy he is.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I really appreciated what he said as well.
yeah, yeah, it's very sweet. Uh, Heather, did you go to the costume exhibition? Were you part of that?
I was. Okay, so I wasn't going to go, but I was like, I was going to meander myself down, but all day Saturday I was cosplaying Greg Lestrade. And there's an amazing, wonderful person who goes to the con who dresses as Mycroft Holmes. And I met them in the hallway, and as they were getting dressed to come to the competition or to the exhibition, and he was like, are you going as Greg? And I'm like, I wasn't going to. What? And they're like, I'm like, when's the costume thing? And they're like, right now. It's like, I wasn't going to. And he's like, please, I can't be without my Greg. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I went upstairs, got dressed, came back down, which was good because I cut my hair short and then I sprayed it silver. And I was going to go upstairs and take a shower like at 3 o'clock. And everybody's like, no, it looks cute. Leave the hair. Which I'm glad I did leave the hair because I had to go dress up as Greg and go down to the costume competition.
I mean, it did look cute. It was a good
you.
look on you.
So yeah, I did that because I had a panel at 6 o'clock and that started at 5. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. So it was about 30 minutes. And we got up there and we got our pictures taken. And there were a bunch of people who were just way better dressed than me. So we got our pictures taken. And then I hurried back upstairs, got changed again, and then went to my Janites and Sherlockian or Sherlock Holmes panel. So yeah.
So how is
So
it
yes.
Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah. So I did Jane Austen and Sherlock Holmes, two of the things that I am most fascinated with. And in fact, that was part of the panel was what is the link between Jane Austen and Sherlock Holmes, and why do people who like Sherlock Holmes also like Jane Austen and vice versa, no matter what Mark Twain thinks. So we did a panel on, the similarities between Sherlock Holmes verse and anything that Jane Austen wrote, because they're like literally one generation behind each other. So was it the clothes? Was it the propriety? Was it the, just there was something about it set in London. And then we got into a discussion about certain similarities between Jane Austen's writing and Arthur Conan Doyle's writing about Sherlock Holmes. And apparently Arthur Conan Doyle did read Pride and Prejudice once when he was sick, but like who hasn't read Pride and Prejudice? So yeah, it's a thing. So yeah, it was a good panel.
Oh, that's good.
I think it went well. So yeah.
Aw. I'm sorry that I missed it. What I originally was going to do is get dinner at that time. But then I decided that I really wanted to go to the media adaptations of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, how was that?
Let's see. It was Ashley and it was Jeff and Curtis. Curtis was also on that panel. Because she just pulled him on.
Why not?
Right. Which then was really funny because then Curtis was like, actually, I'm not too into the adaptation. so then at one point so then I think Ashley was like, why are you on this panel? You pulled me on, something like that. It was funny. That might not be 100, that is not 100% accurate, but that was the vibe. But it was a lot of fun, and Ashley and Jeff are very good together. And then they went right from that panel to Weapons of the Canon, and that was
okay.
just the two of them. And that was a lot of fun. And at one point, Ashley was giving some demonstrations of she actually demonstrating Baritsu. There's a little bit of demonstrations of how single stick worked, which of course she knows all about, and that is her investiture in the BSI single stick. And yeah, just a lot of talk about not just weapons, but about combat in general and the development of combat and how armor developed over the ages. And then we went from like having, full-plated armor to having no armor at all, and just all kinds of stuff. It was very fun and interesting. And for this, because it was all of this and then Sherlolly immediately afterwards, I did not have dinner until super late. But which I think Heather was also the case with you. Like we had dinner at the same time and it was
Yeah.
really evening. But you know what? Worth it. Because I had a lot of fun at these panels.
Absolutely.
So then I mean, we are really only talking about the tracks that we did. And I cannot stress enough that there are a lot of panels that neither of us made it to or were a part of and so missed out on. And we can only talk about our experiences.
Yeah, because there was a fan fiction workshop that was 18 plus that happened at 9 o'clock, and I was eating at that time
Yeah.
and doing something else. I can't remember what else I was doing. But I'm really upset that I missed it because I thought it was just going to be like a flash fiction. But no, apparently it was discussing fan fiction and how to write it and different things like that. And I'm like, oh, how did I miss this panel? Now, had I gone to the panel, it would have been something else entirely. But yeah, apparently it was a fascinating panel. And I should have known when I heard about who was running the panel, and I'm like, I should have just gone anyway. So I missed that, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, and then we scooted up our Shirley panel because they had it down at the same time as the dance party, and we're like, yeah, that's not going to happen because we all ended up going to the dance party.
Well, it was also really late.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did Shirley started at 7:30.
Yeah,
And
7:30 to about 8:30-ish.
little sooner.
8:20.
Yeah. But that was a lot of fun. I was on the panel for the first time and with you and Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just had a really good time.
We had alcohol.
We did. I brought wine, which I've got to remember to ask like if everybody liked it, then I can bring back that same bottle, but I have to order it.
Yeah.
Especially. So, and maybe order more of it. But
Yeah, next year we're getting drunk at the panel, so it's fine.
it was a lot of fun, and I enjoy when Hannah starts talking about Moffat.
If there's anything you need to know about Hannah, UK Thanks Bye, is that she is you think I was bad had we gone to the Women in Canon and I was late. Hannah, you would have had to have help, like both hands would have had to been out to hold Hannah back and me back because like I will defend Moffat and anything. I'll defend Sherlock. Hannah will defend Moffat to the death, like claws out, sharp tongue lashing all upside one side and down the other about Moffat, because she comes from both the Sherlock verse, but she comes with Moffat from the Doctor Who verse, and you just know.
Well, that's the same with me, and
Yeah.
so I'm also a big Moffat defender.
See?
Yeah. Well,
we'll get you and Hannah together next con, and we'll just let you both go. It's like, go, Dixie, Hannah, go. I'll just sit back and clean up the pieces. It'll be fine.
Well, and I mean, the thing is, I think that Hannah demonstrates a very good understanding of Moffat.
Well, yeah.
She understands where he's coming from, and what he likes and his weaknesses and stuff. And I think that's an important thing when you are a fan of, like, any writer. Nobody is perfect. And so I think that understanding not exactly your fave is problematic, but understanding your fave's flaws is a good thing. And
I think the things that are actually their flaws are not the things that people think are, because that's a big problem with a lot of the Moffat discourse, is that they don't get his writing.
No.
Or they're misremembering things because they haven't watched it in years.
Yeah.
Or they're just
that, and it's popular to hate on Moffat.
Yeah, they're going on secondhand information. That's what infuriates me.
Yeah, same. And like I saw this meme on Facebook the other day. It was a Sherlock negative thing where, like, it is so popular to like the first 2 seasons and to hate the second 2.
Oh my God.
And I saw people blaming Moffat for that, without blaming Gatus too. And so I made a comment on it. I was like, look, if you were gonna say crap about Moffat for the show, you better be saying the same crap, talking smack about Gatus too, because he is the co-creator, co-writer, and co-showrunner. It is
Exactly.
much Sherlock is as much his responsibility as it is Moffat's. And so
Well,
at least have enough respect for the man.
and that's the thing. Like Sherlock was Mark Gatiss's baby because Mark Gatiss is a Sherlockian, and that's what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do, and he convinced Moffat to do it. So, like, the problem with that, and like, you can be all of the favorite. Moffat has issues, but then so does Russell T Davies in Doctor Who. Like, he did there's a couple of things that Russell T Davies did that you're just like, but and Mark Gatiss did a bunch of questionable things too. But what everybody seems to forget is that Mark Gatiss wrote a large amount of it, and the things that they're attributing to Moffat very much bay the fact that Gatiss wrote it. I was like, it would be a great idea. And when you take both of those men and let them off their chains and just let them feed off of each other, you get the ridiculousness that is of season 3 and season 4. Because I will 100%, as much as I will defend season 4 for being season 4 had some issues, but it's not as bad as everybody thought.
Agreed.
Somewhere around there, Mark Gatiss forgot he was doing Sherlock Holmes and decided he wanted to do James Bond. And that's what you get because reasons.
I
don't know.
hate that. That's the thing. I don't even hate that.
Oh, I don't hate it at all. I love it. Like, there were some questionable things about season 4 that I'm like, Mark, what were you thinking, babe? But then there's other things, and I think a lot of it was because I think Spectre came out about the same time, and I seriously think Mark Gatiss got jealous because Andrew Scott was in Spectre and decided he needed to write his own James Bond thing. I don't know.
No,
But
honestly, it's not like it was just the two of them. Sue Virtue was the executive producer, and honestly, I think that she could have reined them in a little more than she did, and I don't think that's a problematic thing to say.
No, it's not. But also, you try getting your overexcited Labrador of a husband to calm himself down and sit down and like take a deep breath and think about it. Like, there are things on that show that the actors were like, this is a bad idea. So it had to be like, not everything was written months in advance and double checked and stuff like that. There were like 2 or 3 scenes throughout the entire series where they were like, this is a great idea. And the actors and actresses in the show were like, this is not a great idea. You should seriously go back and think about this. And like season 4, episode 3 is a perfect example of that, because what Gatiss and Moffat actually had as an idea for the final test was completely unhinged and so much James Bond it wasn't even funny until all the actors got together and went, this is a horrible idea, you need to change it. And so they're like, okay, fine, and they changed it. So it's I don't know, I could argue this point season 4 like forever, because like
we probably will do a Sherlock episode at some point, and then you are very, very welcome to be on that. Heck, let's bring Hannah on. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
that would be fun. I haven't seen season 4 since it came out, so I'm very interested to rewatch it.
Oh
yeah,
honestly, I would love to sit in an entire podcast where Dixie and Hannah just go back and forth about Moffat. Like, that's going to be the title of the episode. It's just going to be Dynamics of a Podcast. Moffat. Go. And just let him go. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, Sure was fun, and I do want to throw out there something that I brought up, which is that even though we are not likely at this point to get like any more Sherlock at all,
Yes.
which because of the fandom is probably a good thing, unfortunately. That the character type that Molly is something that can be added to like the repertoire of like these are relationships for Sherlock Holmes that work, romantic relationships that work. These are character types that do well with him. Like the most often used is Irene Adler, and then I would add that there was like a sort of 80s/90s type of female character that was thrown in where you have like a professional woman getting into a relationship with Sherlock Holmes, which is like clearly based on Irene, but not strictly speaking Irene, and this is where Beth Lestrade comes in. And now we also have the Molly Hooper character type, and so which is quieter but very, still very intelligent, very steadfast, and very caring, and so I think that we will see more of Molly Hooper types in the future. At least I hope that we will.
Yeah, I hope so. Molly is probably my favorite character from Sherlock. I love her so much.
Yeah.
She's my hero. But yeah, while you were talking about that, I think it got brought up in either this panel or one of the other panels or somewhere that there was a 90s. When did this come out? I don't even know. 1992, because it's camp. So there was a 1992 Canadian series called Forever Night. And there was a medical examiner on that one named Natalie. And she was very much the Molly Hooper character. And like Nick Knight was the cop who was also a vampire, and Natalie was the medical examiner who was in love with him, and like all this stuff happened. But then even after that, when you come up to Prodigal Son, and you have that character of Idrissa, who is also the medical examiner, who is just ridiculously enamored with Malcolm Bright. And Malcolm Bright, like, obviously, it's obvious that he's like, I don't know what to do with this, but he's friends with her. And you can tell he's got a crush on somebody else who ends up being Danny, who's a cop. But his friendship with Idrissa goes from like, they did things in that show that was very Molly and Sherlock. Like they would get excited over dead bodies, or they would get excited over little things. Like just in the middle of a crime scene, they're both going, oh my God, this is so exciting. And everybody's like, are you two okay? Do we need to go section you? So, I love the character of Idrissa because she was Molly Hooper and like in a completely different thing. And like Idrissa was just amazing. Like I could talk all day about my Idrissa love, but yeah. So yeah, I love the idea that, later on they can use that character archetype for other characters and other shows. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So then after that,
what's the dance party?
well, first we had dinner and then there was the dance party.
Oh yeah, dinner and then dance, which was fun.
It was fun. Like what? The group of like, it was Brad Keith Oliver and Tim Johnson and Max McGee and Rob Nunn all walking over to
that might be my favorite part of it, because you've got all these young not teens, but you've got these 20 and 30 somethings who are all there in their outfits, and here comes what did we call them again? Because I keep wanting to say academic, and it's not the traditional Sherlockians come rolling up in costume, mind you. Because Max had on the most ostentatious plaid suit. It was brilliant.
I think they were pajamas.
It might have been pajamas. I don't know, but it was brilliant. And
it was doing some
Max
kind of
for
Canadian thing, I think.
It was ridiculous. Brad was wearing some sort of Victorian looking
got from the
potentially,
costume vendor. Yeah, he
yeah,
was
lace
going
shirt.
for pirate.
Yes, he was going for pirate. It was great. Rob was wearing Max's clothes. It was awesome. It was just ridiculous.
It was so fun. And Shayna and I were there, and we like looked in, and we're like, yeah, not feeling this. Because, I mean, the music was at an extremely high volume, where like it's the point where like if you're of a certain level of sensitivity, then you feel the bass.
Oh yeah.
Um and I don't vibe with that.
Yeah.
And also the music was just genuinely too loud for me. And that's entirely aside from the flashing lights, which maybe weren't too bad. I might have been able to handle them, but I'm always worried about like strobe type lights giving me a
Mhm.
migraine.
Yeah.
So I would never be able to go clubbing, sadly. That is something that I physically can't do. I feel so lame. So Shayna and I went and hung out in Mrs. Hudson's for quite a while, and that was fun. And at some point, Brad and Rob came back, and we heard a story from one of the other congoers about how they got to meet, basically how they got to meet Kermit
Oh yes.
through listening to going to a con that or a conference, don't remember, where Steve Whitmire, who was the puppeteer who took over from over on Kermit from Jim Henson, he was speaking, and he had Kermit with him, and that was a very moving story because, like, once the puppet comes to life, the puppet is alive,
Mm.
and they really know how to uh, keep that puppet alive. And so it's like, yeah, that's Kermit. That's Kermit right there in front of you. I'd love to meet any of the Muppets. That would be amazing. And Rob got to hear part of that story, which was great because he is a huge Muppets fan. He's a huge
Yeah.
fan. But yeah, that was Saturday. And so, final day of con. Let's see, queer interpretations, gentlemen's accessories, Young Sherlock. Did you go to the Young Sherlock Holmes panel?
I did go to the Young Sherlock Holmes panel.
So how's that?
It was good. So it was Joan and Shanna that were on the panel, and it was pretty good. They talked about, one of them had a book. I think it was Shanna. Don't quote me on that. But they talked about the characters and the popularity of it, or how it could have gotten popular, but it was just not the right time, I guess.
Yeah.
And then like the CGI that came out of it, and just different little things like that. So yeah, it was a good panel.
Nice. Yeah, I think Young Sherlock Holmes, I think that it's a cult classic nowadays.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I remember when we were talking to the original cast for the Moriarty play, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, Young Sherlock Holmes, that was such a great movie."
I grew up when it came out on TV. I didn't see it in the movies, but I saw it on HBO when it was on all the time. And that was where I got that was like one of the Lynch stepping off points for my Sherlockiana was watching Young Sherlock Holmes and then reading the stories. So, and I even mentioned, I'm like, they got Nicholas Rowe when he was like, they pushed Nicholas Rowe to be one of the the 80s heartthrobs,
Mm-hmm.
because you had Up the Brat Pack and you had all those people out there, and Nicholas Rowe had the same look that everybody else did around that 80s time with the hair and stuff like that. But the fact that it was around the time that all the coming of age group movies were out, like Stand By Me was out, and the miniseries of It came out around that time. And so there was all these things. And while Young Sherlock Holmes was a coming of age story with three people, it was also set in Victorian times. So it was a period piece where I think had it not been a period piece, which it wouldn't have made any sense because a modern day interpretation wouldn't have worked at that time. But I think as a period piece, I think that's where it knocks some people off, which is sad because it really is a good story. And like Nicholas Rowe was in like all the 17 magazines and different things like that. Because I might have cut his picture out of the magazine and stuck it on my school locker. But we're not going to talk about that. Mr. Rowe, if you ever hear this podcast, please ignore that section.
So the first panel that I went to on Sunday was the ASH, BSI, and other Sherlockian organizations
Ah, yes.
panel, which was almost kind of a roundtable. And I think it was Brad who said that it should just be about Sherlockians, or maybe it was actually Steve Mason who said that it should just be about Sherlockian societies in general. And I think that next year I'm going to volunteer to, because this is like one of the regular panels, and next
Mhm.
year I'm going to volunteer to be on that because let's be real, the BSI is really kind of a Sherlockian honor society in basically all but name and fact. And so it's like a lot of, I think it's interesting to talk about it from a historical context, but most people are never going to be BSI. And so
Right.
I just think it makes more sense to talk about the other societies that are out there. But it was still fun. Bob Steck was there for like the first half of it and then had to run off to ACD and spiritualism. Marilyn McKay was also there, and then Steve Mason and Curtis Armstrong both ended up kind of joining in with her. So it was kind of a free form panel. That's what I'm thinking of. But it was fun, and yeah, I think that the handful of people who were not in any Sherlockian societies at all, I think that they still learned some things. So that was good.
Mhm.
There was a Good Omens panel. Did you go to Good Omens or no?
I did go to the Good Omens panel. And it was really good. And I'm trying to remember, it didn't, I think it came up that day, which was actually perfect because I think Sunday the announcement came that they were starting production on Good Omens 3 like come January. Or sometime soon. So it was kind of like, yay, we have good news to start the panel off with. So yeah, I walked in on that panel and it was good. They were discussing what they liked and what they didn't like and how everybody felt about the last episode of season 2, which I thought was good because then they got into this. There was the discussion on whether or not, because season 2 was like the part 2. So whenever you have trilogies, the second half of the trilogy is always the one where everything's darkest before the dawn.
Right, everything falls apart.
Yeah, so like, the Two Towers from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Desolation, no, not Desolation of Smaug was third. The second Hobbit movie, The Empire Strikes Back, everything.
Most famously.
Yeah, most famously, The Empire Strikes Back. So just everything there, and the way that season 2 ended, and the internet just blew up screaming at people about it. And it's like, okay, well, you can't yell at Neil Gaiman because Neil Gaiman is literally creating part 3.
Yeah.
And somebody else got into the debate of, yes, but we've been burned so many times with these streaming systems, canceling everything right after before another season, that we wouldn't have known that we were getting a part 3, which somebody else came back with, yes, but Neil Gaiman has always been insistent that if a season 3 didn't happen through Amazon, it would have happened somehow. So it would have been a graphic novel. It would have been a novelization. It would have been on YouTube. It would have been something. The
Right. Well,
finishing of this. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's also important to note that in this goes for literally all streaming services. They need to have frankly, they have an insane expectation, but
Right.
they need to have a very strong viewership to greenlight another season. They will not greenlight
And
more
here's
seasons
the thing.
without having a lot of viewers. And so it is incumbent on the audience to make sure that they are watching the show enough. And so yeah, it's like, no, it's not right that streaming services do this to us, but we know how to game it, if you will, so that we get more.
And I would argue that because like shows like and I'll just throw out Our Flag Means Death had a huge following, and like Our Flag Means Death, when the second season came out, interrupted streaming for, was it Amazon or Netflix?
Well, it
What
was
one?
HBO that was
Oh
running.
yeah, HBO Max. Thank you. So it interrupted streaming temporarily for HBO Max when Our Flag Means Death, the second season, came out, because everybody was watching it.
Yeah,
And it was so popular. And like it's Good Omens and Our Flag Means Death is one of those series that people will binge over and over and over and over and over. Like there are so many people who have watched Our Flag Means Death like 7, 8, 9, 24 times. And there's so many people who have watched both Good Omens series, with maybe the exception of the last episode, over a dozen or two times, because it's so good and it's like their favorite show and it becomes their comfort show and like they're watching it. But even with all that following and all of that,
yeah.
people watching and that fandom backing and support, HBO Max decided not to do it. And it was specifically from a money thing, because it was cheaper to get rid of it and use that money for something else. They could take the loss on it and write it off. And I think, and I understand the upset, the anger and upset, and I understand why they're like, we've been burned too many times by this, because even like Wednesday, everybody was worried about getting a season 2 of Wednesday. And technically it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back, and I don't know if we're ever going to get a season 2 of Wednesday, even though people keep saying we are. So I can see why people would be upset with the ending. Well, I don't see why people would be upset with the ending, but I do see why they would. Because literally anybody who watched the show could tell, oh, this is a part 2 to a trilogy, because obviously there's more to come. You're not just going to end it this way. That would be ridiculous. And Neil Gaiman is not ridiculous. But so I could see why people would be like, look, we've been burned so many times by these streaming sites who are like, please watch this show, and this is how you get the show to stay on. And then they realize that it's easier to take a loss on it and they can write it off on their taxes.
Fair.
But also, I think the fact that this is Neil Gaiman, and everything that he puts on Amazon is gold. And because of, I mean, not only it's Neil Gaiman, but it's David Tennant and Michael Sheen, who are like Amazon literally handed stage to them, which was during the pandemic. Like it was like, here, take this and do 3 seasons of you guys literally sitting on Zoom and talking for an hour for 8 episodes. It's okay, it's fine. So like they know what their moneymaker is there. And between all the stuff with the Sandman and Neil Gaiman, I think that the fact that Neil Gaiman's writing it, he has that draw that sadly David Jenkins didn't have, to get a season 3. But also Neil Gaiman had come out before and said, if they decide not to do it, I will put season 3 out somehow. There will be a conclusion to this. We're not just going to be like, oh, okay, that's it. Sorry, that's, the angels in heaven taking over and Crawley's on earth, and that's where we're ending it. I'm sorry, so sad. So, I can see both sides, but also, that gets into my big, huge, one of these years, we're going to sit down and discuss media literacy things. So, yeah, that was a lot.
What is this media literacy you speak of?
I don't know. Apparently nobody else does either. Good God. So yeah, it was basically discussing that, and then where people would like to see Good Omens go. And somebody made a mention, because everybody knows that Good Omens is going to end with the two in a cottage in Sussex Downs, which every time I hear it, I just cringe a little inside because I know it's going to come. And sure enough, it came during this panel. And they're like, wouldn't it be great? And I'm like, no, it wouldn't be, because I already know where you're going with this and I don't want to hear it. Wouldn't it be great if their neighbors were like this cute older couple and there was like this tall, skinny guy who had bees and this younger man or this shorter man who did this, and they could be their neighbors? And I'm like, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Please don't do that. Please do not do that. Please, Neil Gaiman, do not do that. And I'm just like, let the angel and the demon have their happy thing in Sussex Downs and raise whatever the fuck they want. Like, oh, sorry, raise whatever the heck they want. So if they want to raise bees, let them raise bees. If he wants to take the Bentley out to Sussex Downs and like cause mayhem, let Crawley cause mayhem. If they want to sit in their room and read books to music all day, let them do that. Let them be happy.
Yeah.
We don't have to add it. We don't have to have a crossover. Really, we don't. I promise, we don't. That's what fan fiction is for.
And I do wonder, like, I have no idea what Terry Pratchett thought about Sherlock Holmes. And, Good Omens is originally a Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman
Yes.
collaboration. So I think it would be a little disingenuous at this point to do some kind of crossover thing just because one of the two creators is a Sherlockian.
But here's the thing. When Neil Gaiman wrote A Case of Death and Honey,
Mm-hmm.
John Watson was not in that show at all, or in that book at all. Like, I can't even, it's been a while since I've read it. I can't remember if he was still alive. Like, I think Mycroft was, but also I think Mycroft was eating the same honey Sherlock Holmes was.
I think that Watson was, but I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I need to go back and reread it.
Mm-hmm.
But Sherlock was on his own, like going through the things and, doing his apiary. But he was in Sussex Downs on his own. Like, that was his thing. He was by himself. It was just him and his bees. Bees. But, I don't know. Like, just quit trying to cross things over. That's what fan fiction's for. And that's my rant on that. So after that one, I went to Fandom Generations, which I was on, and that was my final panel. And what I thought it was going to be was what the name said. It was generations of fandoms, or, of people in fandoms. So I thought we'd have somebody from an older generation and then somewhere in the mid and then somebody young. No, we had a bunch of older people on the panel, including, and then somehow Curtis got on it, like got invited, which was great because we're coming on it from Curtis, who has no idea about fandom other than the fact that he's in it and he doesn't even know how. So yeah, we had that discussion and that was interesting. So yeah.
I'm sorry I missed that. I was getting lunch.
Well, you were getting lunch and then you had Moriarty's Network that you were on that happened to go right in between that.
Yeah, then I had Moriarty's Network, which I did not volunteer for. I think Crystal
got voluntold.
put me on. I got voluntold. which I should add did happen quite a bit this because like I know that Shayna had not volunteered for any panels. And she ended up at least on Young Sherlock Holmes, which is just funny. But yeah. So Moriarty's Network ended up being so Bob Scharfman had come to con. He is one of the prominent Chicago Sherlockians. He was actually invested in the BSI this past January.
Yay!
And he is a lovely older gentleman, very nice guy. And he has this whole conspiracy theory of Moriarty and Moran being part of British intelligence. And he's the one who hands out the vote for Moriarty buttons. And he still has a bunch. And so his presentation was it was basically a presentation walking us through actually the essay that he wrote for the BSJ last year, which I know that I have that on me here. Yes, it is. Moriarty on the cover of the BSJ.
Yay!
The Great Moriarty Deception. That is the article from the autumn 2023 issue of the BSJ, Baker Street Journal.
Yay!
So yeah, it was walking us through that essay basically. And I was just there to comment and sometimes add some context because like not everybody in that room, I think, was a canon-based Sherlockian.
Yeah.
So then sometimes I just felt like it was necessary to toss out little canon facts there. Because, like, if you're writing for the BSJ, you are writing for an audience that knows the canon. They don't necessarily know the canon inside out, but chances are they've at least read all the stories. If you're going to talk about the canon at 221 Be Kind, you need to sometimes like back up and explain something. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I guess Bob really enjoyed having me there with him, so that was nice.
Yay!
Immediately after that was an hour with Ashley and Curtis.
Where there could have been a fight. Not gonna lie. So Ashley and Curtis's entire panel was them dressing up in their collegiate caps and gowns and discussing the 12 most forgettable, skippable episodes in our books in the canon.
So this is based on their talk last year where they were going through the case book, which people kind of like to skip over. So then they were like, well, so this year we thought we'd talk about the other stories outside the case book that people tend to skip over and why they shouldn't. And sometimes I feel like they built a stronger case for why you should than not. And
so we're going to preface this with
stories, and it was really funny.
So we're going to preface this with, how big of a fan Madeline is about Moriarty. Johanna is a huge supporter of Mycroft Holmes. Like, as big of a supporter as Madeline is about Moriarty, Johanna is equally as big a supporter of Mycroft Holmes. Like, they are literally two parts of the same coin. So, of course, the Greek interpreter gets pulled up. And I've never seen somebody's head whip up so fast. Like, she's over there writing, and that head went up, and I was like, oh, crap. Like, I immediately look at her. And then they talk about how Mycroft Holmes isn't really all that intelligent and stuff, and I was literally like...
Well, that was Curtis's argument. Ashley was
like,
making the same argument.
I was like, I had a hand out, and I'm like, somebody hold Johanna back because she's going to fly over this table. And sure enough, after it was over, she went immediately up to Curtis to argue her point. And it was brilliant. And I think I have written down for panel ideas next year. And I believe one of the panel ideas is why Curtis is wrong in 2024. Mycroft Holmes as a genius. and she saw it and snorted. So I'm like, panel suggestions. Why Curtis was wrong in 2024. And now I want this panel to happen between Johanna and Curtis. Yes, we're calling you out, sir.
Oh my, that it was noted afterwards that a lot of Ashley and Curtis's talks, because this is like the third time that they've done this. A lot of it seems to be Ashley has to calm Curtis down, which is funny. He gets excitable.
And we love that about him.
Yes. But it was just a very fun time. And yeah, of course, Ashley Ashley is a doctor, she's a PhD, and Curtis does have an honorary doctorate. So that was where the robes came in. And that was a lot of fun. And then a handful of other panels, but of course that was almost the end right there. And at 4 p.m. was our last bow, which was definitely had a
Interesting.
different tone to it this year.
So going back to Saturday when everybody found out that this was going to be 221BCon's last year, this coming year. Like I said, it set a tone for the rest of the convention. And so it was a little bit somber, a little bit manic because, and when I say manic, I mean like everybody like, oh my God, this is the last time we're going to see our friends. So like there was a lot of, we have to throw in some stuff because next year we really have to throw in some stuff. But I've never seen a thing that literally 24, maybe 30 hours worth of panic is an amazing incentive to get everybody's brains working on how to save it. So apparently, like within 2 hours of the announcement coming out on Saturday, people were already coming up to Heather and Crystal being like, okay, can we do a GoFundMe? Can we start donating money? Can we start a some kind of, Kickstarter or something? Like they were throwing out ideas, and it started, the last bout started out with a bunch of people doing the entire, we'd like to see this for next year. We'd like to see this for next year. You guys are awesome. This is great. There were way more water things this year, but not enough trash cans. The handicap thing was broken, but that was seen. And then Johanna came up and was like, okay, I'm just going to poke the bear. What's going on with next year? And about that time, everybody just started throwing out ideas. Like they announced why, because this year, well, with, capitalism and inflation going up and everything like that, like there were a lot of people who bought their tickets or their memberships but couldn't afford the hotel room and the travel because a lot of 221BCon's people come from out of town. So they couldn't afford the travel, they couldn't afford this, so they had to drop out at the last minute.
Attendance
So
was critically low.
yeah, it was like 247 or something like that.
Something like that. It didn't even look like it was that many people, honestly.
Yeah. And I think they had to have at least 300 in order to sell all the blocks at the hotel, and they didn't even make that.
More than that. It was more than
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So everybody
it's
started.
a real financial problem for the con.
Yeah. And honestly, they've been doing this. This is 11 years, and everybody's probably tired. But a lot of it was the financial problem because this year they didn't even they just ran out of money. So like everybody started talking about different ideas that they can do. So somebody thought about a GoFundMe, but then there's ramifications and legalities about that we may or may not be able to do. But then a lot of it isn't. Some people came up with like membership, like buying memberships for people who can't afford memberships. But it wasn't the memberships that were the problem. It was the hotel rooms and the travel that were the problem.
Right. Because memberships themselves are really inexpensive. Like compared to going to any other Sherlockian conference, the cost of membership here is like nothing. It's nothing to register.
Exactly. So a lot of it is, there's that, and then there's so a lot of us are getting together, and I think one of the other things was nobody really knows about it because we all found out about it through word of mouth or somebody who went, or I can't even remember how I found out about 221BCon in 2018. Yeah, 2017, 2018. So I don't even know how I found out about it in 2018. All I know is it happened. I heard about it. I went, and I haven't stopped going since. So, it's just one of those things. So I think a lot of it is we're going to start popping up the marketing and different things like that. And I volunteered to help with the marketing.
Right.
And we're going to be creating like small posters that you can put out on other cons, or I think some of the people in Florida and Georgia are going to be taking some of them to Pride with them. We're going to do like a production sheet and a news brief and different things that we can do, and then set that out in about a month and hand it all over to Crystal and Heather and be like, okay, here's your news media blitz, go put it out wherever. And like Jeff Ryder, who does Crowd Wrangler comics, is putting in an entire fold in the back of his new Kickstarter Sharon Ford Holmes comic book. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So like, we're going to do this huge marketing blitz. We've got a year to get it all settled out. A lot of people are talking about doing things for next cons and everything like that we figure if we put it out there for anybody to be able to download and print out, then they can take them to C2E2, or they can take them to the media cons, or they can take them to Comic-Con or Wizard World Comic-Con in San Diego or New York or something like that. Places where these comics are people, heck, we can even throw in a thing at 221B, or not 221B, at BSI weekend or something like that. Just throw it out there. So yeah, like the last bow was really good for people throwing out ideas and different things, because even if this one is guaranteed, anything after this one is not. So if we get enough people that
And
we
by
can,
the way, it's on the generosity of the hotel, no less.
yes, the hotel has been extremely generous with everything too.
Yeah.
So like this one, 2025 is guaranteed. Anything after 2025 is literally up in the air.
Yeah.
So if this is to be our last one, we're going to blow it out.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm still bracing for the fact that it probably is going to be the last one.
Oh yeah.
Because because I think that we will probably get a very big attendance next time, but that doesn't guarantee getting a big attendance the time after that. And
Yeah.
it also does not guarantee the manpower that a convention needs to keep on running. And I think that's
Right.
one of the issues. And so it's like, yeah, I will do whatever I can to at least to help next year's be a success,
Mhm.
and maybe see if we can keep on going. But I also know that to keep it going would be difficult at this point.
Yeah.
If not actually impossible. And so we'll see what happens. But I do know, like, whatever happens next, we need something like 221 Con.
Yeah.
This fandom needs something like that. It's not for all Sherlockians, and I get it, but there are a lot of traditional, quote unquote, traditional Sherlockian. I don't even think of myself as being a traditional Sherlockian. I understand why somebody would call me one, but I don't even see myself that way. But traditional Sherlockians, canon first Sherlockians, maybe, is a better way to put it. I'd say that's how I think of myself. I think it's a good space for us too.
Yeah.
It's fun, it's creative, it's BSI weekend has a certain stress to it. I love it, but it's stressful. And part of it is just running around Manhattan, which I also love, but it again, there's a certain level of stress to it.
Right.
Conferences are fun, but that's a single track thing. And so if there's something that you don't like, well, you're just stuck there listening to it. Um, and that is the fun and sometimes hard thing about the multi-track programming, that you are guaranteed to always have something going that you should be interested in. And if you're not,
Right.
then there's the vendor's room, or there's food, or there's just hanging out with your peeps in
Yeah.
the bar or the lounge.
And it's not just traditional Sherlockians. So you're walking in and like everybody may have started coming because of Sherlock,
Hmm.
but a lot of people, and I think this was brought up multiple times over the weekend, a lot of people have moved away from Sherlock,
Hmm.
but the camaraderie and the friendship and the family that they've created because of this con is the reason they keep coming back.
Right.
And there's other panels that you can do other than Sherlock Holmes. Although this one was really Sherlock heavy, but there are other panels that you can do other than Sherlock Holmes.
Hmm.
And I think last year it was a even divide of 60-40 or 50-50, where it was half Sherlockian panels and then half a bunch of other panels. So I think, yeah. So
But I think my point about the Sherlockian folks is that truly, if 221 Becon ceases to exist and there's nothing else to replace what it is, I think that the people who aren't interested in Sherlock Holmes anymore, there are other conventions out there. There are other places, I think, where they could probably regroup if they wanted to. I just, and I mean, yeah, like I am coming at this from purely a Sherlockian perspective. Which that's just where I'm at. I just I think that this space is important as a place where you can be a Sherlockian at any level, and it doesn't matter what level it is. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, and you can learn more about Sherlock Holmes if you in other Sherlockians if you want to, or you don't have to. Like your level of engagement is entirely up to you. And also it is fun to be in a Sherlockian space and be talking about non-Sherlockian things. Two of my favorite panels were the Star Wars panel and the Robin Hood panel. I really
yeah.
enjoyed those.
Well, I mean, even at coming through this through a Sherlockian panel, not everybody goes into the traditional Sherlockians.
Hmm.
So, like, if 221 Beacon ends, I can count immediately on my hands or on my fingers how many people I will never see again that came in through Sherlock but aren't going to go to a traditional symposium conference, because the traditional symposium conferences range anywhere between $150 and $300 to go to for a weekend. Whereas 221 Beacon is $50 for the weekend if you get there early, 75 if you're, running late to get the weekend con prices. So, but there are a lot of people that I know that through Sherlock Holmes that I know won't go to those panels because or go to those symposiums because they're not traditional Sherlockians. They're Sherlockians, but they're not traditional Sherlockians.
Hmm.
So, and they're never going to be like, okay, well, let me just go to this one place, and fork over this amount of money on top of the hotel and the travel and everything like that for a weekend of sitting down and listening to a bunch of people talk about Sherlock Holmes.
Now, to be fair, part of the conference expense always includes food.
Oh no, and I
And
totally
it's
understand that. No, and I totally
no,
understand
I'm
that.
just saying, like, con registration does not include meals, which always surprises traditional Sherlockians when they come in. They're like, wait, what about lunch? What about dinner? Typically, that registration will cover not just you're being there, but also like several meals. So it sounds expensive, but when you break it down, conferences, well, like the St. Louis conference, cost me about what con does, maybe a little bit less, but then I'm at con for more nights in the
Yeah,
hotel.
good point.
So the expense I think is comparable, but it's the experience itself that is not comparable.
Yeah. So
I'm
anywho,
I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. I it was nice to have, and I think that maybe a lot of us took con for granted more than we should have. Um, that it was always going to be there, and it's like, no, it's a volunteer driven thing.
Yeah.
So uh but I just it was the first Sherlockian event that I went to. It was the first time that I met anybody in person. It was the
Hmm.
first thing that I ever really truly did for me
Hmm.
as an adult. Just period. And so it was a very big deal to go there and have an amazing time and meet the people that I'd only known on the internet before and meet new people. That was where I met Ashley and Curtis. Um, but I just, with everything that's been going on in my life personally, I'm so not ready for this.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, it's gonna be hard, but it was wonderful. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm so grateful to everybody who's made it possible for all these years. Um, because it was an amazing thing that they created, and
Hmm.
they have kept at it for so long.
Yeah.
Um, there's there were other conventions and other conferences that popped up, in the 2010s, and 221 Becon outlasted them all. So that's that is a testament to the endurance and the dedication of people like Crystal and Heather. So I'm just forever grateful to them. I was like during the Our Last Bout panel, I was like, you guys know, I mean, I knew that they knew that I've been going around. I've been doing a lot of Sherlockian traveling in the past couple of years. And I love all the different events that I've been to. But 221 Be Kind is still my favorite. And it's just it's all the little things. It's like I'm wearing this friendship bracelet. Somebody made friendship
oh.
bracelets and distributed them. And I know Joanna got the Bruce Partington plans, which is very appropriate. And I there were not a whole lot left, but it's a bracelet each story in the canon. So what I got was Mazarin Stone.
No.
Yay! I got Yellowface because I got it during the Women of Canon, and I was up there defending Effie through the entire thing. And apparently, I made such an impression that that's the that's the friendship bracelet I got. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much.
That's great. Yeah, but it's like, it's things like that just special.
Yeah, that somebody went through and made these friendship bracelets with every single story on the canon, and then literally passed them out to people
Yeah, just anybody,
just because.
just because.
It
And
was like
that
the year I made shipper buttons of all the ships, and like had people that I never talked to before. I'm like, here, you want a button? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I have John Luck buttons. They're like, yes. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Do you still have any Shirley buttons left?
Of course I do.
Why don't I
I
have
will.
one?
They're sitting in my, they're sitting in my closet. I will bring them to you in Minnesota.
I promise you, I will actually wear it during the conference. Do you
I've got
have
some
any
Mike.
Maliarty ones? Because Dixie should get a Maliarty one.
I think I have a Maliarty button or two.
Oh,
I will look and see. I think I have some more buttons. Um, I'll look through my buttons and see what I have. and I'll send you a list.
Okay.
Because I think I have a My Cake button too, because somebody came up with it. And I know I had a couple for John and Sholto. So yeah, I will go through my buttons and look and see what I have.
But yeah, anyway, going back to next year, we will definitely have to come up with something special for our podcast panel for next time, because obviously we are probably not going to do this again. So we need to do it one more time, and we need to have something good. I'm already thinking maybe do more, and this would especially be helpful if you could be there, but do something more roundtable-ish, maybe, or something like a game or something. I don't know, but I want to have a lot of fun with our last.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and have more ribbons and maybe buttons this time. Something. We'll figure it out. We'll have Dynamics of a Podcast. We'll be there with some fun things. We'll figure it out. One thing that I will mention though, I was wearing a con shirt on Monday, on the day that I drove home. So as Heather and I were coming out of the elevator, there were a couple of staff members nearby, and they were like, "Hope you had a good weekend. We love having you guys here." And it just, yeah, we
It
are
was nice.
really popular at the hotel. They genuinely love having us there.
Which is good.
Yeah. I think that we're certainly a rowdy bunch, but I think that we are a respectful and well-paying bunch.
Yes.
So that's very important. So yeah, I mean, heck, I'm gonna miss that hotel.
Yeah.
He was like in like the head waiter, Ricky. It was great.
I love Ricky. Ricky is amazing.
Yeah, he has fun with us, jokes around and stuff. So I'm even gonna miss the hotel and the staff.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah. 221 next year, come if convenient, and if inconvenient, come all the same. Well, this is a really fun time. Dixie, I'm glad that you still got to be part of,
Yeah.
panel. And Heather, thank you for coming on, because this is definitely the most fun recap we've done.
Thanks for inviting me. I love that you guys managed to get Dixie to con no matter what. It's like,
Yeah.
if you can't be here physically, we're just going to bring our laptop and you're going to go sit in one of the panels. We'll show you.
I'm grateful for the panel that I saw my first year, where there was a woman who was zooming in, and that's when I knew that it could be done. So this has been good. So yeah, I don't know when this is gonna drop. I don't know when our panel is gonna drop. Probably the panel is gonna drop before this does. I think that would probably be the better way to go. But yeah, get to 221BCon, and we will see you there. Hopefully you'll even see Dixie there. Fingers crossed.
At the very least, you will see me in some capacity, even if I am a laptop.
Even if you're on if it's on the laptop again, yeah. And thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Dynamics of a Podcast was created by Madeline Quinones, with sound design and editing by Dixie Parkinson, and music by Joshua Harvey. We do this podcast purely for the fun of the thing. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time.